Hello and welcome to LTWS Backstage Chronicles, where we take you behind the scenes of the Little Theater of Winston-Salem. I'm your host, Jessica Perry, and today we're diving into the wild, fast-paced world of comedy, specifically farces. In this episode, we're talking about the art of comedic timing, physicality, and all the hilarious challenges that come with performing a farce. We'll hear from director Philip Powell, who has a long history of bringing comedies to life at the Little Theater, as well as cast members Isaac Hampton, Rene Walek, and Ann Breitbach. We'll explore what makes farces so uniquely demanding for actors, how they've built trust as a cast, especially in a show that involves quite a few moments of, let's just say, being caught with their pants down, and the joys of making audiences laugh. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to LTWS Backstage Chronicles, found on all major streaming platforms. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We love hearing from you. Now, let's get into the fun. So with me today, as I said, I have director Philip Powell, Isaac Hampton, who's playing Eric Sheridan, Rene Walek playing Billy Dwyer, and Ann Breitbach, who's playing Karen Brown. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yes. How are we doing today?
Good.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Great.
It's good to have you all here with me. I just want to go ahead and jump in and get started, and I want to talk about what makes this show fun or challenging in terms of comedy.
I'll start.
Yeah.
It's a really fun show that, from a typical farce standpoint, you've got 8 doors, which is always great for a farce. So you got all different ways for people to come on to stage in ways that you don't expect. You have to have doors slam at specific times. But really, farces, at the end of the day, are all about being extra silly. It's not a comedy. People talk about comedies all the time. I mean, it's funny. But farces, audiences count on being extra silly. And they know that it's going to go to that next level of absurdity. And that's what's really fun in this farce. It's really what I would call kind of a caper farce. So it's got a little bit of a mystery to it, although it's not serious at all. But that's what I would call it. I would call it a crime caper farce.
And so this director, Philip Powell speaking, you have directed many comedies with the Little Theater, but you're kind of known for being really proficient at farces. What is it about farces that really draws you in as a director?
I think the complexity of the farce. Farces are way more complex than anybody gives them credit for. Granted, they're not high art. I mean, years from now, centuries from now, people will not be studying this play. They will, or anything like that. It's not true, but they're complicated beasts. And farces done correctly involve choreography, which is usually associated with musicals. And you never hear the word choreography associated with a drama too much. Most people just get on stage and start pontificating. So, but in a comedy, you've got to know where to move precisely, and you've got to do it in concert with other people on stage in unison, in time step, and that's a rare thing to be able to do well. So that's why I like it, the complexity.
So speaking of the complexity and challenges of a farce, timing is very, very key to the choreography and in farces. So what kind of challenges has any of you faced with like the comedic timing and getting the elements just right?
There's a lot of comedic timing, like you said, that goes into it. Whenever we're talking about, you talk about all the different doors and everything. We have lots of different gags with the doors, hitting people getting hit, slamming. Everything has to go one by one, and it has to look great whenever we do it. Because if we slam the door and they're 10 feet away, it doesn't play right. It doesn't work right. And so that's where we're challenged in trying to make this farce come to life, trying to get, like Phil said, the comedic timing of it, get the choreography of these movements down so that we all move in the time step like we need to so that this farce plays out correctly. That's the biggest challenge that has been for me throughout the entire thing, not just there, but keeping consistency with all the other actors, especially Ann. In this case, we have a lot of different bits together that it's very difficult to go into and discuss thoroughly. But come see the show. But just a lot of the consistency of that and the timing wise, trying to get all that down good. It's very challenging.
There's layers to it too. I mean, the interaction between Eric and Karen, there's layers in the sense that there's clothes. I'm going to say it. There's clothes that come off, and they have to come off at the right time. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. It has to come off at the right time, at the right wording, at the right moment to hit funny. And if it's not, if it's off, it's kind of like, well, that was really awkward. Did she mean to take that off at that time? But, that's...
So I guess that plays into the choreography part that
Yes.
Phil was mentioning.
Yes.
So it has to be very well choreographed, the moments and the clothes coming
It's
off.
it's just like any musical. If one person is off on the wrong word or the wrong note of a song when they're dancing together, it throws everyone off rhythm. They're not in sync, and so that's where the difficulty comes with things like that when we're choreographing the clothes coming off, the clothes going on, the door slamming, things like that.
And it makes it easier when the other person knows what they're doing. So there are moments when Isaac moves, and I know to look for when he moves, because when he moves, that's when I move. It's the same thing with Agent Frank Latimer. When he moves, I know when he moves one direction, I move the other direction. So it's kind of like I'm not completely relying on them to do my job, but at the same time, it makes it easier when they know what they're doing.
Sounds almost like a dance. Like
Yes.
he moves, you move, back and forth.
Pretty much, yeah.
I know that this is a very physical, physically demanding farce. Are all farces is there a lot of physicality to farces, or is this one just particularly?
If you do them right, they're all demanding. I mean, if you got a bunch of lazy actors, then maybe not so much. No, I wouldn't cast lazy actors. Although there's opportunity yet for you to be lazy. No, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. No, but yeah, I mean, if you put the appropriate amount of energy into any performance, it's going to take a toll. And there are some little bits on here, Rene can speak to this, where it's just like, oh, you do a flip over the bed. And when you're reading that, you don't think too much about it. But then when you actually get to do it and you have to make it into something that is executable, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, so Billy gets to do some stunt work, which it's been a while since I've done some this kind of farcical stunt work. And there are times where I have to flip over the bed, and as Phil said, it's really simple. It's you flip over the bed, but then you have to think of okay, what is the precision getting into it so that because it comes off of an interaction with Isaac, a physical interaction with Isaac, and it's like I have to go, how do I keep him safe? How do I keep myself safe? And Phil and I were working it last night, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go home and play with this. And so I've been trying to work on some roles and things like that, and it's just a matter of where do you feel safe? Where does safety and comedy kind of come together? And how you have to sell that, because you don't want it to look like something where people are like, oh my God, is she okay? You want the audience always to be like, oh yeah, she's fine. That was funny. And so there's a challenge there of making sure that the comedy sells. And
So you at home practicing flips on your bed?
I am at
husband
home
just walks
practicing
in and is
things that I never thought I would be practicing at home. This is the second thing that I've had to practice. The other is Billy at some point is tied up with her hands behind her back and her feet together, and she has to be able to move all different ways in all different places. So I've been at home practicing that, and yes, it's fun when someone walks in and they're like, "What you doing?" It's like, "Does this look funny?" so yeah, some of the stunt work is coming along, and when you get it right, it's quite amusing. And then sometimes Phil says, "Yeah, that's fine," and you're like, "Oh, I gotta do it better."
That's a good for me. That's a good for me generally. Now, if I sigh before, it's fine, then that would be different. But if I say it's fine, then that's fine.
Any compliment from Phil is good.
It's true.
It's good work.
He makes you want to work harder and make it funnier and make it better.
He does.
Has there been any fun mishaps in rehearsals?
I've fallen a couple of times. I'm not alone. Like when you're backing up and you think you're sitting on the bed and you're really sitting on like a little stool thing that's not meant to hold you, and you go to the floor.
Oh no!
I was trying to run out of the room and I hit the bedside table. And I just almost fell on my face out the door. So that was.
You also,
Thankfully, there was
when
a
you were
door.
trying to lay onto the bed seductively, you hit the table, and it just struck me that you're a yoga instructor.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes, I
so I didn't know what to infer from that, but it was something is out of practice. I'm not sure what, but that was a good time. Nobody's injured themselves, to the best of my knowledge, too badly. At least not yet.
Too badly.
I know when I used to do shows, I would always have bruises up and down my legs. It was looked like I was being beaten. It was like, no, I'm just in a show. And I thought maybe I had an iron problem until I stopped doing shows. And I'm like, oh, the bruises are gone.
That's kind of true.
Has there been any like funny mistakes or mishaps or anything that like you're like, you know what, I like that. Let's keep that in the show.
Mistakes?
Or
Yeah, I know.
improvised moments or
Wiggle. Shimmy.
Yeah, shimmy. But that wouldn't call that a mistake. We figured that out. I mean, although I encouraged Ann to explore ways in which she could look as though she was seducing someone with physicality. And she's come up with some very interesting ways. And they all have a different, unique aspect to them. She does a shimmy, which we have found to be pretty humorous. I'm sure your genuine shimmy is fine. It doesn't cause laughter at all. But this comedic shimmy is quite good.
It's the timing.
Yeah, it's the timing. That's right. Just if you dialed it back, it would totally have a different vibe.
I noticed with this show, with a lot of clothes and coming on and off and actors having to be in positions of being vulnerable and things like that, how have y'all worked out finding ways? I mean, I've noticed that at our most recent promotional shoot, y'all were all just very comfortable with one another, joking around. It seemed that like there's this ease amongst everyone, even though some of you may not have worked with each other before. What was it like working to get that comfortable level, or was it just instantaneous?
I think it's been kind of instant.
I think a lot of it for me is just being in theater.
Yeah.
you do theater enough, you get comfortable with people around you.
You be open.
Yeah, you're open and you are vulnerable very often throughout the time that you're on stage, backstage. You're working together with the people all throughout rehearsals, however long that process may be. You really build a bond. It's like a family. For me anyway. I know I feel that way.
Well, you know all about family in theater as a Hampton.
Yes,
And for those of you who
yes.
don't know, though most of you listening probably do know that Hamptons is quite prized in this community. What has it been like for you and your experiences in theater growing up? Like, how is that
So a lot of it has actually really been fairly recent. For me, I didn't even really get into theater at all until 17 or 18. Phil actually directed the first show I was ever in, was Young Frankenstein back
wow.
in, 2018? Mm-hmm. That sounds right. So, growing up, that was not really anything I had any interest in. I actually really wanted for a long time to just follow in my dad's footsteps and be a fireman. That was all I wanted. That was the only thing in life that I wanted. And after my sister and brother and other sister got involved in theater and started working and acting and things like that, they kept egging me on. Hey, come on, go out for a show, go work backstage, come do something. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I finally gave in for Young Frankenstein. And ever since then, it's just been, I can't get enough. I don't want to ever leave rehearsal because this is, well, I guess after you do it long enough, it's probably not an escape if it's a 9-hour, 10-hour day every single day. But, taking that 3 hours of a day, you're transported into unnecessary farce this go round. I'm in a different world. I'm Eric Sheridan for a little while, and it's not real life for a little while. It takes away from the stress of real life, and it opens you up, and you bond with other people, and you feel that sense of family outside of just your normal family. And it's good to see that good side of people that the theater community is.
So, Ann, this is your first show with the Little Theater, correct?
No, actually, I did.
Oh, really?
I've done shows when Little Theater was in the old building.
Oh,
The last show I did was Annie, Get Your Gun.
Oh.
So yeah, with Jerry Hatmaker directing. So it's been a while.
Well, what's it like to be back? Oh, Phil, you have something to
No,
say?
I was just going to say, I'm the only one at this table who is alive who remembers Jerry Hatmaker.
Yes.
So there we are. Jerry was great.
Yes.
So what's it like to be back, and how is this experience different from what you remember?
It's nice. I mean, I've been doing shows with Rene for
Just a few years.
it was wee.
Yes, I've
For
known
an
Ann since I was in
undisclosed
high
amount
school.
of years.
Yes.
Yes. So it's nice to be back. I left for about 10 years. I was living in New York City, and then I spent 8 years in New Jersey, and then came back and wasn't actually thinking I'd hop back in, but something, an opportunity presented itself, and then it's just kind of been, okay, how do I keep staying in? Like Isaac said, I love being here. I love being around the people. I've had really good memories, and I'd like to create more memories. So yeah, it's been really lovely coming back and working with Phil. I've never worked with Phil before, so.
But my reputation preceded me.
Yes, it did.
So before you worked with Phil, what did you know about Phil? Just what did you hear about Phil?
Well, I could bring in my I could bring in Jim McKenney.
Yeah, that would be right.
That's how I first met Phil. Was I was dating Jim McKenney. So
Can't believe anything Jim says about Phil.
well,
Or everything he says about Phil.
What did he say? He said you're a slave driver.
That could be.
That's what he
That's
said.
fair. Yeah.
But in my opinion, when I first read the script, I was like, okay, this is you can't have a slack director with this kind of show because it's very technical. It's very precise. Comedy is really difficult, and you need somebody who knows their stuff. So
And I think that's one of the places where a lot of the trust is coming from with this cast, is Phil and our stage manager, Elizabeth, are very, very clear at every rehearsal. Right now we're just focusing on this. Don't feel like you need to jump from point A to point C, like we're just doing point A tonight. Like just get where your feet are moving in the space, and if you act and it's funny, great. But like, you don't need to take your clothes off. You don't need to like they're very clear about what the expectations are. And so that helps you feel safe that you're not doing a full on whatever every night. You're just like, okay, really do focus on this one thing. And then you build up trust because, like Ann said, if she's moving and or Isaac is moving and my cross only makes sense when his is going, then, you've got that layer. We're literally building this layer by layer, and Phil is like, that'll be the next layer when we have a question. So tonight we're working on the layer that is the doors. When do they open? When do they close? Who opens them? Who closes them? It sounds so simple.
Yep.
But it's so imperative that it is right and accurate, especially when you're the actor that gets trapped behind the door, as I do. And so it's just, I think that that's one of the layers of trust, is like we just have been doing it one step at a time, so that we don't go on until that last step is right and good.
Oh, that's great, because like most of the time you wouldn't be working these things until you get into tech, and then you have like less than a week to try to work out all of those kinks. But y'all are working on the layers now in rehearsals, because you have that element, the doors, like you said, and then you have the costume changes, the costumes coming off, the costumes coming on,
And just the props. Like, I've never handled handcuffs before, and I have to play a cop who handcuffs people. And I mean, she's not supposed to be that great at it, which is very good, because I'm sitting there trying to handcuff people, and I'm like, I think this is right. maybe. Okay, they're on there. Moving on.
You were made for the character.
I am. I'm so Billy. Be the cop.
So, just for fun, if you could switch roles with any other character in the show,
Yeah, I'm Billy. I would. Yeah.
Really?
I was gonna say the same thing. I would be Billy. Yeah, I would want to be Billy. Yeah. Gender bent, unnecessary farce.
I think I would be terrible at it because Dave is amazing, but I would say Todd.
Yeah,
Todd
that's
the
a fun
Scotsman,
one.
he has to do this dialect that is challenging, and then on top of that, he has another layer to the dialect that where he becomes incomprehensible. And I would love to have those skills, and so
I was
that role is
watching him
amazing.
the other night, and I kept thinking he's doing mouth cardio right now.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, I told him, I mean, the whole thing through his character is he has to be really mad. And, I mean, he has to be obviously mad that Reed's 40, 50 feet away, not just vocally, but physically. And, he has to get pretty breathless and even mentions, him getting red, having a red face. And that's kind of true. It has to get to that level. But I said, not that this is going to happen. But I told him that if you get really breathless, your odds of going up are high because you're literally throwing yourself into this kind of extreme physical state. But it's what the role requires, and the only way to kind of get through that is to do it over and over again, so you get used to that physical state and know you can get through it. And he's doing a great job. But it is one of these things where he has to exert, even at his base level, a high level of energy, and then he has to go like 150% above that.
And he's such a sweet guy, too. So he has to go from being what I consider just this really giant teddy bear to like this fierceness.
Yeah.
Like, which I'm sure, I haven't been in the rehearsals yet, which I'm sure he pulls off very well.
He pulls it off, but then like when we're in that really wonderful place where we're all learning our lines, and like Phil said, you can go up and forget your lines, and so he'll be really loud and angry, and then he'll go, "Oh, sorry," and like he pulls it right back, and then goes right back to the big, and it's just kind of comical just watching him.
Was it Saturday? His face was like bright red at one point. I thought, is he going to have a heart attack?
Whereas as a director, I'm thinking, that looks great.
No fun there. That's
done.
great.
So who seems to make the other cast members laugh the most in rehearsals?
Latimer. Oh my God.
I'd say Latimer.
I can't even look at his face sometimes. He looks at the ficus plant at one point and his eyes go wide, and I'm like,
He does. His facial expressions are just on point when you're just staring him in the eyes and you're trying not to laugh. It's so hard. It's so hard.
difficult.
And he plays it just so straight, and his character is more the straight, even not even keeled, but like straight man. And so when you see the facial expressions on top of it, it's just extra, just extra.
When he screams.
Oh my gosh, when he screams.
Squeals, sorry, when he squeals.
So one of the conceits of this show is that it is 2 rooms. The 8 doors are spread over 2 rooms that can't see each other, but in reality, we as actors can. And I have to deliberately be like, don't look at Latimer, don't look when he squeals, because every time he does it, I'm like, what is happening?
So it seems like one of the biggest challenges in performing the show is just not breaking
Yes.
while performing the show. Which I'm sure that with Phil's tutelage and comedic timing and basically beating the timing into the ground, like that muscle memory and stuff takes over and you just go. Because this is a very fast-paced show.
The whole show runs about an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, so the good news is for everybody at Little Theater Winston-Salem is you'll be getting out of there pretty quickly from a run standpoint. It'll be like 2.5 hours tops in and out. I mean, like for audiences, it'll be less than 2 hours. But it's a brisk 2 hours, or brisk hour and 40 minutes. You know, the first act is about an hour and second act is about 40 minutes.
So with the 15-minute intermission, a little less than, just under 2 hours.
Yep.
Love it.
perfect.
Love it. And it's so fast paced, you probably don't even
It flies
know.
by.
It flies by.
We've been very fortunate going back. It's like as a director, I've been very fortunate with the cast to have them bond in this way. And to be honest, that's something I never try to get in the middle of, which is not because I learned long ago you can't make a cast bond. Despite your efforts. And certainly me getting in the middle of it is a bad idea on so many levels. And I've often found, in a weird way, a lot of casts will go out, and that's great. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I also try not to get in the middle of that because in some ways I want to leave space, and I don't talk to you about this, where the actors can talk smack about me if they want to. Because, in some ways it's important to let those ideas happen, and that is a way in which people can bond. It's kind of like you don't even dislike the person necessarily, although you could. But it's important to not be present at all times because you're present during rehearsal for sure as a director, but you shouldn't be present in every waking moment of the cast's social life. You just get in their way of having fun.
Correct.
Well, and having fun is a big part of why we do theater.
Yep.
Yeah. So, is there any comedic or comedy influences that inspire your performances?
Oof. That's a good one. You know what I think of when I think of Billy? I think of Mr. Bean for some reason.
Oh my goodness.
Or maybe even Eric too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
See, it's not necessarily like a comedian, but I think of Billy as Judy Hopps from Zootopia. She's like the little bunny trying to be a cop, and everyone's like, yeah, you're not very good at that. And she's like, I'm going to be great at it. And she's determined and doesn't give up and has this great attitude. And, when a big challenge comes along, she's like, I'm going to do it no matter how hard or scary this is. And that's kind of my little spirit animal for Billy. Isaac?
Hi.
You got to have somebody who do you think is good comedically? Forget about the show.
Even if it's not about the yeah.
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question.
I would say like somebody like Tina Fey or Amy Poehler. They're perfect with comedy because they're so good at timing.
Yeah. I mean, I like Dick Van Dyke. I mean, I think Dick Van Dyke is, if you look at some of the stuff from the 50s, his show, it still holds up. And he's got a lot of, it's not exactly farcical, but his physicality is tremendous in those shows. I mean, I would say it's, not just talented, but even low-level genius. It's very, very good. Influenced me a lot. But yet the show still has heart. I mean, he's a performer who is doing these absurd comedics. I mean, good grief, the intro to a show, for those of you who have never watched Dick Van Dyke, shame on you. But he falls over an ottoman at the beginning, in his intro to the show, and that's not something that A, your average actor could do, and B, that they would think, well, no, you shouldn't do that. But, he makes it work, and he's lovable, and he's a really good physical comedian, in my opinion.
And I think some of that is really important, that lovability. Like, I really love Gilda Radner because she would throw herself into things, but then there was just this genuine likability where there was all this comedy is coming from this innocence of wanting joy and to create joy. And I think, and I personally love Dick Van Dyke for that same reason, like a lot of joy. So I think this cast wants to bring a lot of joy, and we try to bring joy to rehearsal, and so that's one thing that's helped.
I know when I was growing up, and I've always been very sad about what happened to her later in life. But when I was growing up, one of my biggest influences was Amanda Bynes. because I was that clumsy, like
Yes.
falling down person. I used to say I wanted to grow up to be a stunt double. I was like, because I fall down all the time. Might as well get paid for it.
She was fearless when she was younger and in her comedy. Like, she would just throw herself into it so big and so loud. I loved her.
Oh, I did. Yeah. No, and I am that run into a door because I'm not looking kind of person.
Yes.
Correct.
And then that like influenced a lot of my
I think
acting.
that's where
when I
a
did
lot
comedies.
of Ann and my friendship comes in. Because we're both the kind who will walk
Clumsy.
into a door and then just laugh at each other and go, "Are you okay?"
Which must be very fun when you're trying to be sexy.
I can't look at them when they do it. Or I'll break.
Has there been any like favorite moments that you've had in rehearsal so far?
So many. Oh my goodness.
I've enjoyed watching Elizabeth play my part.
Yes, that was.
I enjoyed watching Elizabeth jump up on a chair and say,
Oh, my
"Oh God,
goodness.
Eric, you're an animal."
Elizabeth, our wonderful stage manager, has taken on, I think, every role in the show so far throughout the process of rehearsal due to conflicts, and she does wonderful every time. And it's always so fun to watch. Yeah.
So, what would you want someone to take away from this show after they're done seeing it?
Bellyache.
It's a hoot. I mean, that's, like I said, farces are a meal that you will probably not remember for the rest of your life, but they're really filling, and you feel great after you've consumed a comedy fest like this. I want them to feel good and silly, laugh out loud silly, especially. And they will. This show, I think, is going to deliver. It's a fun show.
That's the other trick, though, is getting the audience to feel comfortable to laugh, because not always, they don't always feel comfortable laughing. So if there's one person in the audience that laughs out loud, which is why I love Jim, because he'll come see a show and he'll laugh out loud, and suddenly the audience feels comfortable laughing. So it's...
Yes, that's something I wish more audiences understood. Like, you are free to react. I mean, don't have a full conversation with your neighbor or answer your phone. But like, if something on stage compels you to react, because the actors feed off of that. And what the audience doesn't necessarily know is you are also a part of the show. The energy that you bring is given right back to you. So the more you give, the more the actors give, and it becomes its own unique experience. And so when you come to see this production, laugh,
Please laugh.
hoop, holler, go nuts. They will really enjoy it. And there's a lot of moments in this show for that.
Yes.
Whistle,
Yes.
Woohoo! Ow!
Am I blushing?
Are your cheeks getting red?
I'm a redhead, but I can't help it.
For those of you who don't know, Anne will be in a state of undress during the show. Various
Over
states of
half the show,
undress.
yes.
And in fairness, so will Isaac.
Yes, correct.
Less.
That's what I love about this, is that I'm not the only one. There's a couple of guys in there who have to run around in their underwear as well. So.
Yeah.
Something for everyone. If you're into, how shall we say, different tastes, we've got a lot.
I'm so looking forward to this show.
That was our pot father, Tim Beeman, there. Oh, wow. Well, much like the pace of the farce that everyone's going to come see, it feels like we've been talking for hours, but just a few minutes have passed. Is there any last things we'd like to share before we conclude today?
Get your tickets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come
Please
and enjoy.
get your tickets now.
Yes.
You will regret not seeing this show.
Yeah.
Yes, you will.
I'm very much looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Like everyone said, it's going to be a good one. So come ready to laugh and just enjoy all of the wonderful people in here in this room, aside from me, that will be absolutely fantastic in this show. Come ready to laugh. It's going to be a good one.
Have a drink before the show,
Oh,
then
yes.
come laugh.
Loosen up. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that is a wrap on today's episode of LTWS Backstage Chronicles. We hope you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at the art of comedy and the wild, wonderful world of farces. A huge thank you to Philip Powell, Isaac Hampton, Rene Walek, and Ann Breitbach for sharing their experience, laughter, and insights with us. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this podcast with your friends. You can find LTWS Backstage Chronicles on all major platforms. And do not forget to check out our website at ltofws.org for updates on productions, tickets, and events. Stay tuned for our next episode where we will continue to explore the magic of live theater with more exciting guests and behind-the-scenes stories. Until next time, I'm Jessica Perry, and thanks for joining us here at the Little Theater of Winston-Salem. A special thanks to Such and Such Media, our 90th season media sponsor. Whatever your podcasting needs may be, Such and Such Media has you covered. And we'll see you at the theater. The views and opinions of this podcast are those of the contributor and not necessarily those of our distributors and hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted. Use of this podcast without express permission may result in alien blood-sucking plants taking over the world. You have been warned.